Another Christian school has been targeted in a mass shooting attempt, and anti-Christian crime is on the rise. But President Biden is too busy pardoning other criminals to worry about that. And I will tell you all that you need to know about the drones flying over the East Coast. This is your favorite night of the week, The Deep End on Tim Hatch Live. Hey, everybody. Welcome into The Deep End one night late. I am sorry about that, but we had flights yesterday and a lot of things to do. And so we are one night late, but I'm glad because we have more appropriate news to share with you tonight on The Deep End, where we talk about the news of the day through a pastoral lens. My name is Tim, and this is Tim Hatch Live, and I'm so glad that you are here. Mind you, this content is for educational purposes only. So we start off tonight with a heartbreaking yet urgent story. In a time where violence seems to dominate the headlines, we are called as Christians to confront these tragedies with truth, with compassion, and with resolve, biblical resolve. Let's look at the details of this shooting and what it means for us as a people of faith and as a nation. A 15-year-old girl opened fire in the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin on Monday, killing a teacher, a student, and then wounding 6 others before taking her own life. The suspect is named Natalie Rupnow and dead, of course. The police say that the teen who went by Samantha died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The teenage suspect used a handgun. Authorities are investigating the origin of the firearm and searching Rupnow's home in the north side of the city. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes has said the motive is not clear, and that's pretty much all we know so far. There were some initial reports that she perhaps was a transgender person. Those have been debunked as of right now. The White House released a statement within hours and cited the need for gun control, which is quite interesting, as there were 0 calls for gun control 2 weeks ago when Harvard healthcare CEO was gunned down in cold blood in the middle of America's largest city. And Joe's own son, Hunter, was recently pardoned for felony gun possession. I guess we only want to worry about guns in certain instances of gun use in this country. And I just want to stop here for a moment and kind of highlight where the power players in the Democratic Party are taking the narrative concerning the healthcare CEO who was gunned down a couple of weeks ago. Here is Bernie Sanders appearing on Meet the Press. And just see if you can notice the lack of any concern for gun control in what he says here about what caused this cold-blooded gun murder in New York 2 weeks ago. Watch.
Elizabeth Warren obviously understands killing and murder and shooting somebody in the back is totally unacceptable. But what I think has happened in the last few months is that what you have seen rising up is people's anger at a health insurance industry which denies people the health care that they desperately need while they make billions and billions of dollars in profit.
So there you have it. You have a fine example here of liberal hypocrisy. Guns used at a school, bad, 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 bad. Get rid of the guns. Guns used to kill a winner of capitalism. Well, you know, people are mad. People are mad that they don't have as much money as that guy in New York City. Here is Senator Elizabeth Warren, also from New England, Massachusetts, my home state, saying that you can only push people so far, and then eventually they take matters into their own hands with guns. Watch.
What happens when you turn this into the billionaires run it all is they get the opportunity to squeeze every last penny.
Yeah.
And look, we'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
You can push people only so far in capitalism, and then eventually we need to worry about bringing socialism to our shores. I guess that's the implied statement that Elizabeth Warren is making here. Guns are okay if you make a lot more money than you should, according to me, a senator in New England who makes a lot more money than she should somehow becomes a multimillionaire while working at a university and then in the Senate for the last 12 years. So are we following the logic here? Guns only matter in certain gun usage situations, according to political left. This is the continued moral authority collapse on the political left, unabated, And it's actually good. Let's see this actually exposed. They don't care about guns. They don't care about you. They care about control. They care about controlling the economy. They care about controlling who makes what, according to their idea of what is fair and quote unquote equitable. They want your schools gun-free, your house gun-free. They want your life under their thumb. And they will get on the talking heads shows every weekend and expose themselves continually. And I support this. Continue to call these things out as you see them. Democrats, you are exposing yourselves for the frauds that you continue to be. Andy Ngo is reporting that the shooter in Wisconsin was obsessed with previous school shooters, including the 1999 Columbine shooters, even liking the same band as one of them and featuring that band there on the shirt and the picture that you see on the screen. The shooter also left a manifesto behind that is replete with left-wing talking points. Quote, every single male must be wiped out from babies to the elderly. Only then will women be free to create a new world. Let me ask this question. Who was talking about women's rights being stripped away from them after the election of Donald Trump? Let me think. Oh, yeah. Democrats who are running for political office. And then once he won, the outcry of women's rights being ripped away from them were loud and ferocious and continued. So that is what we've got here. We've got perhaps the offspring of political talking points that believes males are the problem and women need to be free. And I will take a gun and use that to take away someone's most basic civil liberty, the right to life. The manifesto also includes racial slurs against black people, as well as the phrases, quote, I will always hate humanity and it will never be overruled. Out of all the serious talk, though, how everyone forces other religions on other people, and so on and so forth. Or another line, quote, I am part of the real thought and the real revolution. So a lot of anti-Christian sentiment, a lot of anti-minority sentiment, a lot of anti-male sentiment. Just a hot mess and a very troubling story out of Wisconsin. And our prayers are with the family and the school. But here's the question. This is not just random violence we're witnessing anymore. No. There is a troubling trend of Christians and churches and Christian organizations being singled out as believers just because we are believers. This is what's happening right now. Now, there is a real spiritual battle, but the spiritual battle manifests itself in the material. And that's exactly what we're seeing rise up in these last few years. I want to talk to you guys about the increase of anti-Christian hostility, and it is a thing. I will admit that for many, many years in this country, Christians had a persecution complex that wasn't really necessary. Just because gay marriage became a thing and abortion was a legal right, we tended to play the martyrdom persecution complex. But now we have the facts, we have the stats, we have the trend. There is anti-Christian bigotry, open bigotry, happening on a regular basis. And you will see, in response to this bigotry, in response to this injustice, you will see no marches, you will see no protests, you will see no riots in the street and entire neighborhoods being burned down in the name of justice. No. But the anti-Christian hostility is absolutely increasing. This is from firstliberty.org. Quote, new report, record high hostility and violence against churches in America. Hostility and violence against churches in America is at an all-time high. According to a recent Family Research Council report, they documented more than 430 incidents in 2023, more than double the number in 2022. That's an 800% increase in incidences since 2018. And an average of 39 attacks every single month. That's more than one a day. Close to 400 were acts of vandalism and arson, which often left churches and their properties defaced, causing thousands of dollars of damage in many cases. Gun-related crimes, assault, interruption of church services, and bomb threats comprise a smaller share of the attacks. Here is the breakdown of the incidents against Christians over the last year from January 2023 to November 2023. That's just 11 months. And again, this is last year's statistics. We don't have this year's statistics. 315 acts of vandalism, 10 gun-related acts, 75 acts of arson. And then look at this rising bar graph of incidents per year from January 2018 to November 2023. This is incidents of crime perpetrated against Christians because they're Christians in our country. The article goes on and says the findings also correlate with a similar report titled The Intensifying Intolerance Toward Christians in the West. documenting a sharp rise in religious freedom violations. The 2024 data shows the persecution of Christians by Western governments rose by 60% last year. That's the government doing it. And over the past 4 years, most violations in the Western world actually took place in the United States. So we are at ground zero for more and more of this to happen. Things like the desecration of church sanctuaries and the desecration of other Christian-oriented or Catholic-run institutions, such as pregnancy resource centers. I just learned today from one of our staff members that the Massachusetts state budget has a line item of $8 million of state taxpayer money to be used to go after, through legal means or harassment, pregnancy resource centers in the state. Pregnancy resource centers. These are oftentimes Catholic-run organizations to protect unborn babies from abortion and provide care, counseling, alternatives, and clothing, diapers, formula, and other necessities for young mothers who are overwhelmed at the prospect of having a child. And they are now, with taxpayer money, going to be targeted by the state government of Massachusetts at the tune of $8 million in the next fiscal year. And then you have state universities like Georgia State University saying that religious expression is only allowed in free speech zones on campus. This is also from the same outlet that provided the last content. On several occasions, this article goes on and says, Stephen, this is a Christian, met with a particular student to discuss the Bible and his Christian faith. On one of those occasions on April 9, it was raining outside, so the student invited Stephen to sit at a table outside the dining area where they could talk. But a university employee and 3 armed police officers had other ideas. They abruptly ended the conversation and demanded that Stephen and the student return to the free speech zone immediately because of the religious substance of their discussion. Stephen complied with the demand, but asked why he could not have a conversation when a student invited him to do so. The school employee not only explained that the school policy required him to stay in the free speech zone to have his religious conversations, but that he also must not approach students even within the free speech zone. So that is, again, firstliberty.org for all of those articles. That is open hostility against even Christian thought, even Christian conversation. And at institutions of higher learning, this is abominable to the legacy of America. America was built on the Judeo-Christian ethic, on the scriptures being applied. Separation of government, separation of powers. Where does it come from? It comes from the scriptures. How did we even get our Constitution? How did we even get 13 colonies, which could have been 13 different countries, to become one united group called the United States? Fasting and prayer. Benjamin Franklin, a deist, and by no means a devoted Christian follower, called for fasting and prayer during the Continental Congress until God would give them the direction and the clarity that they needed to formulate a new country. He spoke of God's providence at work in these times. And now, the very institution that established America, that gave us the freedoms and the limited government that we should be enjoying, is openly hostile to that foundation. It is exactly what happened in Israel in ancient times. The people got hostile to the word of God. They started to turn on the Lord and hate him. And it happened in Jesus' day. Jesus comes to die for the sins of the world, to give his life as a ransom for many. What happens? They hang him on a cross. They hate the truth. Jesus said they hate the truth because they are the father of the devil, who lies. And his natural language is lying. And Jesus shared the truth with us when it comes to persecution. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, these incidents are raising serious questions about Christian safety in this country because of tolerance over other things at the national level, aka our president on the way out, Joe Biden, pardoning criminals left, right, and center, leaving many, many Americans bewildered, and for good reason. Are we seeing justice served or justice undermined? So Biden is not finished making criminals punishment-free on his way out of office. Remember, Biden came in during the riots of 2020 and championed those acts of lawlessness and violence. His running mate, Kamala Harris, raised money to bail people out of jail for violent offense during 2020 so that they can go out and commit more crimes, and they did. And now, staying true to who he is, Joe Biden is catering to criminals. He is continuing to lose all moral high ground and has become the all-time leader by a mile for pardons on his way out of office compared to any other president in our history. He has commuted roughly 1,500 sentences and pardoned 39 people thus far in one single day of clemency. The move comes amid, this is from the New York Post, a wave of pressure from Democrats on Biden to tap into his nearly unlimited clemency power ahead of the White House departure. It was the largest presidential act of clemency on a single day in modern history, according to his administration. Prior to the announcement Thursday, former President Barack Obama had the largest single-day clemency with 330 just prior to his White House departure. Let me just put this chart up on the screen. This is pardons by U.S. president. You can see is next to nothing with George Washington. I think William Henry Harrison, who was not in office very long, had 0. James Garfield, almost 0. George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, very low. Then you have a very high blip on Bill Clinton. It goes back down under George W. Bush. It goes way up under Obama, way down under Trump, and now to the stratosphere under the president we currently have on the way out of office. And we want to ask this question: who is he pardoning on this list? Well, how about Rita Crundwell? This is a former comptroller of Dixon, Illinois, who was responsible for embezzling $53 million from the city. $53 million taken of taxpayer money in Dixon, Illinois. This is the largest municipal fraud in U.S. history, and she has been granted clemency by President Joe Biden. You know, President Joe Biden campaigned during his term on the fact that he was going to, and he did, pass a bill to hire 89,000 some odd IRS agents to go after the tax cheats. Kind of ironic that now he's actually letting someone out of jail who took tax money for themselves illegally. Then there's Jim Carlson, who ran a synthetic drug ring in Minnesota. Even Democrat Senator Amy Klobuchar stated on Sunday that while some of the commutations may have been warranted, there are a number that she thinks makes no sense at all, specifically referring to Jim Carlson of Minnesota. So this is the moral party. This is the party without the quote-unquote convicted felon running for office, right? This is the moral high ground party that continues to crumble under Joe Biden's feet. Who else did Joe Biden pardon? How about the Chinese spies convicted of stealing American tech secrets? Okay, right now we're talking about in the news cycle, drones that are flying over the East Coast. Could it be that the Chinese spies came in, stole secrets and tech information from us, and then Joe Biden pardoned them? This is astonishing to me. President Biden pardoned 2 Chinese spies and the relative of a high-ranking member of the Chinese Communist Party who was caught with tens of thousands of images of child pornography on his computer last month in a prisoner swap between the two countries that was made public. I'm not going to try to pronounce the 2 names of the Chinese persons there, but they were both convicted of espionage. They were granted clemency last month, along with Shenlin Jin, who was convicted of possession of more than 47,000 images of child pornography while a doctoral student at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, 2021. Zhu was the first Chinese government intelligence officer ever to be extradited to the United States to stand trial for targeting U.S. aviation companies. Think about that. To steal technology, according to a DOJ press release. He was convicted by a federal jury in 2021 on conspiracy to commit economic espionage and conspiracy to commit trade theft, among other charges. The career intelligence officer, who was a director of the Chinese Ministry of State Security, the country's main intelligence and security agency, was sentenced to 20 years in prison by a federal court in Cincinnati a year later. And now he is a free man. Now these people are free, courtesy of Joe Biden. Remember when the Chinese spy balloon flew across the country and Joe Biden and our government did nothing about it until it did what it did by traveling from west of us in Canada right down to South Carolina and finally headed over the sea, and then they shot it down? Joe Biden is so dirty. If you do not see it, I don't know what to tell you. Now, this one probably is the worst. He also pardoned a person named Judge Michael Conahan. There he is in the picture there. This is a corrupt judge who was jailed for more than 17 years after he was caught taking kickbacks for sending juveniles to for-profit detention facilities. I remember the days when Democrats were against for-profit jails. Now, Joe Biden is actually pro-for-profit detention facilities, particularly if you fleece money and pad your pockets in sending kids there through illegal kickbacks to yourself. This is unbelievable. This article goes on to say, in what came to be known as the Kids for Cash scandal, former Judge Michael Conahan shut down a county-run juvenile detention center and shared $2.8 million in illegal payments from the builder and co-owner of 2 for-profit lockups. Another judge, Mark Ciavarella, was also involved in the illicit scheme, the effects of which are still felt today among victims and families, including one child who committed suicide once they entered into the for-profit lockup. This article goes on. Even Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania said that he opposed the president's pardon of this individual. Quote, I do feel strongly that President Biden got it absolutely wrong and created a lot of pain here in northeastern Pennsylvania, Shapiro said at his press conference in Scranton on Friday, while adding that he was not privy to all the information about the decision. Well, the decision is really simple. You take money to make sure that you can get kids into a for-profit detention center, and you get kickbacks from the contractors, builders, or owners of those detention centers, and you're supposed to be working for the county. You no longer work for the government. You no longer work for the state. You no longer work for the county. You work for the greedy capitalist who is building the for-profit jail. Moral high ground deterioration continues with the Democrats. Now, we also have to talk about these drones. Okay, let's buckle down, everybody. Let's calm down, because this news cycle is just so 2024, right? We can't end 2024 normally. No. It must be that we have these suspicious, some SUV-sized, in some cases, drones flying overhead at a time when public trust in the government is at historic lows. This news could not be more fitting for the end of this year. There's growing concern about drones hovering over New Jersey. Are we seeing the rise of government surveillance? Or is something else happening entirely? Is this Iran coming to scope us out? China, maybe courtesy of the recently released Chinese spies, courtesy of Joe Biden. Well, let's talk about it. In recent weeks, numerous reports have emerged about mysterious drones flying over New Jersey and other East Coast states, prompting public concern and calls for transparency. Federal authorities, including the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, are investigating these sightings, which began in mid-November 2024. While officials have stated that many reports involve misidentified manned aircraft or legally operated drones, some incidents remain unexplained, particularly those near critical infrastructure and military installations. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, I can't wait for this guy to be gone, attributed the increase in sightings to recent FAA rule changes allowing night flights, and emphasized that there is no evidence of foreign involvement or threats to national security. Despite these assurances, local officials and residents continue to demand more information and effective measures to address the situation. Now, I want to tell you, full disclosure here, that I am a drone flyer. I have actually flown many drones over the last 10 years. I think I started in 2014. You could fly drones at night back in 2016. I used to fly them over some fireworks shows in my hometown. I think back in 2016, 2017. This is not new, and it's not because of the FAA rule changes that allows night flights. Please, give me a break. Drone flyers are known for a lot of things, and following the rules is not one of them. They take those things up wherever they will, and sometimes they get into a lot of trouble for it, but they don't check the rules. But more on that in just a moment. I want to show you some of the videos that we have scoured the internet and found. This looks like a hybrid plane/drone, so I don't know if that's too alarming. That could be manned. It's got the propellers as well as the fixed wing set up there. Not entirely sure we need to be concerned with that one. This one is interesting. This one looks like something out of a Star Wars movie.
I've been seeing them at like 4 in the morning.
Have you?
Like twice.
That's very...
Seriously, this looks like the opening, setup for Return of the Jedi. Then there's this one from New Mexico, footage of New Mexico of what looks like a tractor beam. And the appropriately dramatic music to accompany the video. Let me see if I can turn this down here. Hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. So that's interesting. It's like a UFO type flying saucer. This is an interesting video as well. Do they have a force field around them?
Zoom in with my camera.
Look at this.
All the way up to the drone. This is what I get. It has a round like shield around it.
This is Star Wars coming to life.
Well, right, that's zoomed in, 100, 208. And I'll show you the drone right now. Up in the sky.
Not only do they have force fields potentially and tractor beams, but they also change shapes. Watch this one.
It's changing different shapes, bro. It's just a circle. Look, 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 look. It's just hovering.
Then lights going weird in parking lots in Pittsburgh.
What happened to the lights?
I don't really know, bud.
Show to Mom.
Yeah, I'm gonna show it to
Of course, I don't see any drones in that footage. It might just be something with the electrical grid there. We don't know exactly. It can't be necessarily attributed to drones. Here are some electric cars being affected.
Oh my God, what are these Teslas doing? Oh my God, my phone's making funny, weird noises too. Oh no, they're hacking my system. Oh my. Ah.
Okay, and then there's this video, which is kind of interesting. They claim that this was a bird flying into a plane engine on an American flight out of New Jersey. Watch and tell me if you think that this is a bird. Watch. Shall we do that one again? Bird? Or a glowy drone type object? Anyway, oh, there it is, slower. Yeah, there you go. This next video is really an audio of somebody talking about the fact that they were sucking power from solar farms. Watch this.
I've been on a call for a suspicious drone sighting in North Stonington. The reporting's party name is Lisa. She's driving back to Groton, but believes she has video of drones in the area that were landing in the solar panel farm, sucking power from the solar panels so they can continue their flights. You could call her.
Okay. So what are these things? Are they part of a government conspiracy to throw a fantastic New Year's Eve party? Believe it or not. That is what the ladies at The View say. Watch Whoopi Goldberg react to this.
I think they know what it is. I think they're not going to really be able to say it. Or we're going to get a really hell of a big party for New Year's Eve. It's going to it's going to be like a dome over all 50 states of these drones, and they're all like doing that. It. Well, why not? I mean, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, that's what it is. Our government is throwing us a glorious New Year's Eve party. Boy, I can't wait. Trump, of course, is going to weigh in. The incoming president said, if we don't know what they are, shoot them down. Shoot them down. Now, as a drone pilot myself, I'm not a fan of that sentiment. I really am not. A lot of these drones could just basically be consumer-grade drones that people fly up into the air. The FAA also reports that there are over 850,000 drones registered in the United States. 850,000 drones. Not to mention that Walmart and Amazon have been talking about this for a long time. They're going to ship your stuff to your house through the use of drone technology. Who knows if they're testing things out with government permission. You think about some of your packages on Amazon. Some of them are massive. Some of them are, furniture pieces or toolboxes or so on and so forth. You're going to need a large drone to get the product to your house. Raise your hand if you're in favor of that, by the way. I am on the fence. I kind of like the idea. I like technology. I'm a big sucker for progress in technology. And more on that in just a moment. By the way, and this is important that you understand this about drone flying. Again, I fly drones. And I was surprised to learn a couple months ago that in September 2023, a law was passed at the federal level about drone flying that forced you to register your drone. Starting September 16th, 2023, all drone pilots in the U.S. were officially required to operate their drone in accordance with something called the Remote ID Law. The Remote ID Law forces you to plug your controller into your phone. Your phone then sends your geoposition to the database or to the cloud, and then people can identify, and here's what it is. People can now identify the whereabouts of the person flying the drone that they see in the air through several apps. Now, I have tried a couple of the apps, and you can look them up for yourself. They aren't that reliable. The technology is, kind of new and everything like that. But that is basically what Remote ID has just forced drone flyers to do. This article states Remote ID will allow drone traffic to be monitored, and the pilot identified and located. Remote ID helps the FAA, law enforcement, and other federal agencies find the control station when a drone appears to be flying in an unsafe manner or where it's not allowed to fly. So, I bring that up because the government absolutely knows what these things are. And that's why they're not shooting them down. If they were a foreign entity, they would be shot down yesterday. And if we have this information available to us by law, we should be able to look them up and see where the controller is. Where's the pilot? That's how a drone works. The pilot's not in the drone anymore. Another hypothesis that I would like to float is, are we looking at modern day hologram technology? Some of you are not aware of this, but hologram technology has come a very long way recently. Of course, you might be familiar with the Los Angeles Sphere, this new modern wonder of the world, where they basically project in the shape of a sphere things that actually aren't there, like pumpkins or globes, or, I don't know, fancy globes with fancy patterns on them. There's also hologram usage going on in many concert venues around the world right now. Here's one example of literally killer whales flying through the air in an indoor stadium through the use of hologram technology. Watch this. Not killer whales, just whales and dolphins. It's wild. How do they do that? I have no idea. But then again, I don't know how my phone connects to the internet and then gets my voice into your ear from another country. We don't know how these things work, and we have to embrace some semblance of mystery with technology. Technology is leveraging different venues of the creative experience or the creation that we live in right now. Airwave frequencies, internet frequencies, transmissions over 5G, cell tower technologies, hologram technology, all up there somewhere in the stratosphere of the MIT, think tank, and we normal people probably don't have the greatest handle on it. Here's what I would say. I would caution you, as I am myself right now, against just spouting off of the mouth as to what it actually is. Here's an interesting hypothesis, however. We could possibly have the answer to what's happening in the skies from an old computer scientist who was around when the internet was just getting started and was actually instrumental in it. His name is Jacques Vallée, and he wrote a book called Wonders in the Sky: Unexplained Aerial Objects from Antiquity to Modern Times. He tracks the similarities of these sightings from ancient times to today. And he talks about this, that they are very similar in their descriptions from the people who observe them, these, unidentified flying objects, despite the cultural differences and even the time period differences of the people who report them. So think about this. UFOs, if you think about it, going back to the 1960s and 50s films, and you look at modern day sci-fi films, they haven't really changed that much in the basics. You have usually like a flying saucer, a lot of rotationary, movement to it. You have tractor beams, you have force field shields for defense. And this is just kind of part and parcel with what we've always talked about when it comes to objects in the air that fly overhead that we cannot identify. In that book, he also argues, again, this is Wonders in the Sky, that paranormal activity is potentially from another dimension or a parallel reality. Now, hold the thought, Christians, before you think I'm off my rocker here. There's a movie that came out, won the Oscar last year. It's called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it talks about this paranormal activity through other dimensionalities kind of interfering and, invading each other. And it's kind of an interesting theory. The movie was terrible. I hated the movie. But the theory is interesting. And it's actually something that we can get on board with as Christians. I'll just let that thought settle in the air for a moment. But he says that UFOs could be manipulated phenomenon by somebody in one of these parallel universes to cater to our own curiosity about such events and then shape our conversation and shape our world. He suggests that the phenomenon acts as a control system, influencing human consciousness, beliefs, and societal development. Think about this. Where do we get the idea for the things that we see in sci-fi films? Just hear me out. Because the ideas of some sci-fi entertainment venues are actually now reality for our world. I give you a 2005 2-hour television documentary called How William Shatner Changed the World. William Shatner played Captain Kirk on the original Star Trek series, which was not on TV for very long. Many people don't know that. The movies were actually far more popular than the television show. But William Shatner basically walks you through how the fictional realities of Star Trek became the impetus or the inspiration of modern day amenities that we enjoy today, like doors opening for you at the grocery store, or at the convenience store, and then closing when you walked through them. They were not around before Star Trek. Star Trek showed you what they could be, and then people got to work on, gee, how can we make that a reality? Or the personal computer. 70 years ago, the personal computer was unheard of. And people said it would be useless and it would never make any money. It would never be part of the human condition. Now it's everywhere. Well, it was everywhere on Star Trek. Or your phone, which is basically, if you think about it, if you ever watched Star Trek, it's basically a comm where you can contact anybody at any time in the real world. Then it touches on the scientists who developed key technologies because they saw it on Star Trek, this William Shatner Changed the World documentary. Dr. Mark Raymond of NASA, who worked on ion propulsion for deep space probes, was influenced by Star Trek. Martin Cooper, inventor of the cell phone, credits Star Trek communications as his inspiration. Ed Roberts, inventor of the Altair 8800, which inspired Bill Gates to develop BASIC and found Microsoft, credits Star Trek for his inspiration to develop the technology. Medical technologies such as MRI, non-invasive imaging services, were also traced back to Star Trek's influence. Fiction precedes fact, or life imitates art. Could there be, and this is an interesting question now, could there be an alternate dimension that is crossing the curtain and influencing the progress of the human experience right now? And Christians, it's not outside the Bible's scope to agree, firstly, that there is an alternate dimension. We call it the unseen realm. We call it the unseen world of the heavenly realities around us, wherein angels and demons are doing battle. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces in the heavenly places. That's Ephesians 6:12. So we Christians believe this stuff. Are we seeing manifestations? Are we seeing that curtain crossed from the unseen realm into the seen realm? Is this the Lord stirring up people's hearts with signs in the sky that Jesus talks about actually in Luke? In Luke's gospel, Jesus talks about it, that they'll be despaired for the signs that they see in the sky. It's not, what I'm saying is it's not outside the Bible's purview to make these suggestions. But there might be something even more nefarious when it comes to our government. And I want to take you there now. Jacques Vallée is on this video in an interview from 1986 where he exposes something called Project Bluebeam. This is a governmental project, and states that he discovered the White House had plans during the Watergate scandal or thereabouts that they would trick the people of Cuba through hologram technology, that Christ had returned because it was a predominantly Catholic country, and then they could do whatever they wanted with the country if they could get the people to believe that Jesus had already come. Watch this. Fascinating.
If enough people believe that something is real, then it is real in its effects. In terms of its social reality. In terms of the social reality, in terms of what people act according to their beliefs. Yeah. And that opens a question of, really at two levels, perhaps something that we are creating ourselves, perhaps a series of images that we are projecting. I think Carl Jung came very close to expressing that idea in one of his books. Or could it be manipulated purposely by people who have the technology to simulate UFO sightings? And people say, well, of course not. Who would do a thing like that? Well, I would remind you that during the Watergate investigation, it was discovered that there was a plan originated in the White House to surface a submarine off the coast of Cuba and paint the second coming of Christ over the island of Cuba using holograms. Which is well within our technology today. The idea was that since there is a large Catholic population in Cuba, they would be so upset by this vision that this would saturate the communication channels, the telephone system in Cuba, long enough for an invasion to take place.
How interesting. I never heard of that.
Well, I think that's a classic in psychological warfare, but that kind of manipulation is well understood, and I have personally investigated several apparently genuine UFO cases where there was in fact a manipulation. My conclusion, the conclusion of scientists working with me, was that there was, in fact, a manipulation taking place, and that it was not a hoax on the part of the witnesses, but a hoax on the part of somebody much better organized than them.
So there are
incredible when you think about it. He was talking about that in 1986. That's almost 40 years ago. The U.S. government was ready to project in hologram form the return of Christ over the island of Cuba and then invade them. Yikes. There is definitely something nefarious going on. Now, whether that be spiritual forces in the heavenly realms, as the Bible talks about, or uncouth or somewhat nefarious practices by our federal government, I'm open to both suggestions, and I don't see either of those suggestions as out of the bounds of reality for Christians to accept. Because after all, it wasn't too long ago that this happened. The Chinese spy balloon flew over our country, and our government did nothing. And you still have no reasons. We still have no answers as to why that was allowed. So what are these drones? If they're enemy ships, the government would not be allowing them to fly in our skies, right? Or if they would, then our government's not doing its job. Anyway, we need leadership in the White House again, and this is getting nuts. That's our show for the free content. I've got a lot more to get to in the extra content, but you're going to have to subscribe. Yes, I know. You're going to have to subscribe to the Dependables membership plans, $10 to $60, whatever you want to do. There's the benefits there on the screen for you. Sign up now at patreon.com/TimHatchLive. A lot of work and a lot of team effort goes into this, and you help us make it happen. Also, if you support us, we support Project Rescue and the American Bible Society, and 10% of all that comes in goes out to each of those organizations, stopping sex trafficking and getting the Bible into more people's hands. Other than that, have a great night, and I'll see the Patreons right now.